Siemi and Bote, to all the Bantu family all over the world, to the dispersed and outcast of Isolele in the eastern and western hemisphere, may the spirit of Tatanzambi, the spirit of Yakongo come upon you today, wherever you are in this world. The word Negro comes from the Latin Niger or Niger, which means black. In 1555, this word gained popularity among the Spaniards and Portuguese to describe the black African Jews, yes, the black African Jews, who were also known as Moreno and Morenas, the black African Jews of Portugal and Spain. And the Spaniards and Portuguese used the word Moreno as a nickname for someone with dark and swartzy, that is a black complexion. So the Jews of Spain and Portugal were black, and they were called Negro and Moreno, swartzy complexion, swartzy meaning black. Now, these were the European Jews whom they expelled from Portugal and Spain to Africa. And many also were sold into slavery. In the year of 1547, the papal office authorized the establishment of the system of the Inquisition in Portugal. This system was mainly directed against the new Christians, the so-called secret black Jews. Now, these Jews were Bantu. These were Bantu African Jews of Portugal. Yeah, the Catholic Church gave a papal bull authorization to the kings of Portugal and Spain to remove themselves from these black Jews. That's the so-called Inquisition. And this system of the Inquisition was mainly directed against the new Christians. Yeah, of course, Mundele Christians suffered as well, but it was mainly directed against the new Christians. This is a quote out of the book of Rudolf Winsler. Livingstone considered these Jews to be deportees from Portugal. Saint Paul de Luanda began, like Saint Thome, as a penal colony for the punishment of criminals. In Portugal, many of these black Jews were considered criminals. Now, why were they considered criminals? Because most of them didn't want to convert to Christianity. So the Inquisition served its purpose, and many were arrested and condemned as criminals. Also, many of these black Jews of the land Angola, it is said, came from San Tome Island. All available evidence indicates that the Jews of the Angola coast were Portuguese Jewish outcasts. Yeah, the Jews of the Angola coast were Portuguese Jewish outcasts in Angola, African Jews. Many black Jews were established inland and along the coast of Angola, the Congo and Gabon. Friedrich Ratzel writes that the tribes on the Luango coast and the Cabinda north of the Congo River were once Christianized. Ratzel observed ceremony of baptism followed by circumcision, However, these tribes were Jewish, Bantu in origin. Yes, Jewish, we're talking about African Jews, and they are Bantu in origin. The Christianity that Razzo saw among them was a disguise. The circumcision practice among them is of Jewish Bantu derivation. The Christians in Portugal did not practice circumcision. Okay? Wow. This is a quote from Stephen Jacobs, The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. Father Giuseppe Ciatti spent several years at the Kaheti Catholic Mission in Kenya. In a manuscript written in September 1932, he says, it can be easily concluded that the Agikuyu have had some contact with the Hebrews after their departure from Egypt. No, the Agikuyu did not have some contact. They are Habiru. They did not have some contact with Hebrews after their departure from Egypt. They are the Habiru. The Bantu are the people. In summary, we see that Hebrew religion and culture permeated Black Africa from coast to coast and represents the very heart of the native civilization, however much it may have changed or become corrupted through the centuries. That's very true. Now, in the Bible, in Amos 9 verse 7, it is written, are ye not as children of the Cushite unto me, O children of Israel, Isolele? Are you not as children of the Cushite unto me, O children of Isolele? So Amos here is actually comparing the children of Isolele as Cush or Cushites. And we know that Cush is ancient Nubia. The Bible, many translations translated as Ethiopia, but the correct translation is Cush, and Cush denotes ancient Nubia. So therefore we can say that Kongo called the Israelites Nubians, or he compared them to Nubians in this verse of Amos 9:7. Scripture from Leviticus 8:13. And Moses brought Aaron's sons and put coats upon them and girded them with girdles and put bonnets upon them, as Yakongo commanded Moses, who we call Massa. Now the sons of Aaron, Aaron's name is also Nsuka, they are the priest, and the priest in Kikongo are also called Nsaku. So they are the Nsaku of the Most High, the sons of Aaron. And the clothing or the garments, the complete clothing that Moses commanded the Israelites to make for the priest Aaron and his sons, they were designated for beauty and glory. Yes, they were designated for beauty and glory. So that means that those clothing, they had spiritual significance in Geta, and they also were endued with spiritual power, those clothings. The regular folk were not allowed to wear those clothes, and also the priests, when they came out of the temple, they had to remove themselves from those clothing. But the thing that we have to take away here is the coats, the girdles, which are belts, and the bonnets. So they were clothed. So in the Strongs, as you can see, Ketonet, the Kikongo there is Kinkutu, Kinkutu. So the Strong says Ketonet as quotes, The Kikongo says kinkutu, which means a shirt, a tunic, jacket, a coat. Yeah, it's a robe, it's a garment that you wear. It can also be like a cloth, that you put over your body. What we see in Africa, many men have that cloth just over the shoulder as a garment, just like that. It goes over your shoulder. Now, in this picture, left, you see a Nubian is wearing the kinkutu, is wearing the coat or the garment, as you can see. And then the word for belt, the belt or girdle. The word for belt is kagai in the Yiddish Strongs, kagai, which in Kikongo is kanga. Kanga means to fasten, like a belt to tie. It also means to close or to restrain, but in this instance, it means to tie a belt. To tie a belt, kanga. And from kanga, we also get the word Kongo, also referring to belt. It's, look at it, belt. So kagar is kanga. The Yiddish kagar, Strong's 82296, kagar is kanga, which means belt, girdle, to fasten a belt, to tie a belt, to bind around. That is girdle. And here we also see the kinkutu, as you can see, over the shoulder, over the shoulder. This nice picture, the garment. Kinkutu is also something, a cloth that you wear over the shoulder. You have the jacket, the garment in its whole, and you also have the garment or shoulder piece, garment that goes over your shoulder, or a shoulder piece, like an accessory, as in this picture. And put bonnets upon them. Put bonnets upon them. As you can see, left on the far right, you see Nubian, Israelite, Bantu. Now, these headpieces are also called mpu, and the mpu signifies the authority invested in a person elected to an office of sacred leadership. So mpu was a sacred symbol of leadership. The people who wear the mpu, they are people who are appointed in sacred leadership, like the priests. Like the priests, as we have seen. Moses was commanded by Tatanzambe, by Yakongo, to put bonnets upon the heads of Aaron and his sons, because they were elected and appointed to a sacred office of leadership, spiritual leadership. So the mpu signifies the authority invested in a person elected to an office of sacred leadership. Now, talking about the girded. Girded. Now, girded also means to be clothed, and that clothed is tied with a belt. Now, Samuel ministered before Tatanzambe Yakongo, being a child, and he was girded with a linen ephod. See, he was clothed and his clothing was tied with a belt. A linen, he was clothed, girded with a linen ephod. And also David danced, Davidi, he danced before Yakongo, the Tanzambi, with all his might. And Davidi was also girded with a linen ephod. A linen ephod. So also Davidi was girded, so it means clothed with a linen ephod and fastened with a belt. That belt is powerful. Now, the ephod is a priestly garment. Ephod is a priestly garment. also a shoulder cape or mantle. So it's a mantle that goes over your shoulder. Some people, it's go over your shoulder. That's a ephod. So it's a garment. It's a piece that you wear, worn by an ordinary priest and made of white stuff. Yeah, that white stuff is linen. It was made of pure linen. Linen also signifies righteousness, and sanctification. It was worn by the ordinary priest and also by the high priest. Yeah, the high priest. And the effort of the high priest was more costly because it was woven with gold and blue, purple, and scarlet. All right. And it was also ornamented with gems and gold. Now, Exodus 32, verse 2. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives and of your sons and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. You see, now this shows us that not only did they wear garments fastened with belts and bonnets upon their heads, but this shows us that they also wear earrings, golden earrings. Now, in the picture here of the Nubian, you can see him wearing a bonnet and the golden earring in his ears. All right? It is just to identify the ancient. Now, here we see the 4 points. We see the bonnet, the mumpu, symbol of sacred office, the golden earrings. We see the belt of truth, the kanga, which produce Kongo, to tighten the belt of truth, to fasten the belt of truth, kanga Kongo. And we see the fringes. Fringes, of course, the book of Deuteronomy 22, verse 12. The fringes. Now, the fringes I think in the Yiddish they say yitzit, but it is the Kongo titi, and titi also means grass, the grass or the trees, nature. Yeah? So in Yiddish it's titzit, the Kongo it's titi. Now, barkagor translates in Kikongo Bakongo, which means girded sons. Bar being son or son of. Son of. Kagor is of course Congo. You have Bakongo, girded sons of truth. Now, the Israelites, the Bantu, were called girded sons. Yeah, and Bakongo, which means the girded sons. Also, the sons of truth, because girdle, the belt Congo, is a symbol of truth. Yeah, and truth is represented in Ephesians 6 as the belt of truth. Yeah, girdle is the belt of truth. Yeah, and Yiseka'yah was, is, and will come as a Bar Congo. That means son of man girded with truth.
Okay, before the white man came in the Bantu area, his name was known as different. So we're going to give you the name how the people beyond the river of Ethiopia was calling these angels. So his name is Kongo. So you see many ethnic, Bantu ethnic call him in different name. You got Shede Bakongo, and Bangala, they call him Kongo or Akongo. So Lunda people call him to Congo, Basuku people, Bayaka, call him many Kongo, and Baluba, Bakuba and Bushu call him Kakongo. People from Kasai and Katanga call him Kongolo, and people from Boshi, Couvert from Republic of Congo, call him Ikongolo. And you got other Bantu ethnic people par Batetela of Sanguru, call him Okita Congo. You got Mongo people and Chwapa, call him Iyala Congo. You got Maniema from Lualaba, call him Bakongola. Bakongola. This is the angel of covenant, because before the coming of white people in Africa, you should know that Bantu people had a chief angels. They call him archangels, Akongo or Kongo, archangel.
Now, is the name of Nzambi in the Bible? Someone asked me this question. Is the name of Nzambi in the Bible? Yes! That's an outstanding question, my brother and sister. Let's see if the name Nzambi is in the Bible. First Esdras 9 verse 34, the King James Version of 1611. And of the sons of Mani, Jeremiahs, Mumdis, blah blah blah, a bunch of names, but there in the purple, follow the arrow, you see the name Nzambis there. The name Nzambis, and these were names of priests. Yeah? So the priests called their sons by the name Nzambi. The S is silent. They called their sons also by the name Nzambi. And Nzambi means, Nzambi is one of the names of Yakongo. Some may say God. Okay, let's say God. Nzambi is one of the names of God, of Tatanzambi Yamanzulu, Yakongo. Yes, in Brazil and Curacao and Suriname, the posterity of the slaves who were taken out of Congo are acquainted with the name Zumbi. Yes, so they are acquainted with the name Zumbi, which is a corruption of Zambi. Yeah, Zumbi is a corruption of Zambi. Because this Afro-Brazilian, Curacao and Suriname, they were the posterity of the slaves who were taken from Congo, Angola. So they were acquainted with the name Zumbi, but Zumbi is a corruption of Zambi. All right, let's continue here. Now here we have a portion of the history of Loango by Abba Proyat, and he tells us that our ancestors in Congo, in this area, that they acknowledge a supreme being who, having no origin, is himself the origin of all things, and they believe he has created all that is fine and all that is good in the universe. That being by nature just, he loves justice in others and severely punishes fraud and perjury, and they call him Zambi. See? Spelled exactly the same. Zambi. They call him Zambi without the S. The S is silent anyway. Zambi. Yes. The Congo ancestors called the name of the creator Zambi. And this name is used up to this day. Yeah, in Congo, Angola, Gabon, yeah, it's used up to this day. Nzambi Yamanzulu. Alright, now the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin connection with the Bantu. Is there an actual Hebrew, Greek, Latin connection with the Bantu? Which Abba Proyat in his book designates as ancient tongues. Ancient tongues. Now, is there any connection with these ancient tongues with the Bantu? Now, let us see. Let us see. Let us first read an article from the Britannica about the lost tribes, and it reads the 10 lost tribes of Israel, 10 of the original Hebrew tribes which under the leadership of Joshua took possession of Canaan, the promised land, after the death of Moses. They were named Asher, Dan, Ephraim, Gad, Issachar, Manasseh, Naphtali, Reuben, Simeon, and Zebulun, all sons and grandsons of Jacob, Yakuba. In 9030 BC, the 10 tribes formed the independent kingdom of Israel in the north, and the 2 other tribes, Judah and Benjamin, set up the kingdom of Judah in the south. Following the conquest of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians in 721 BC, the 10 tribes were gradually assimilated by other peoples and thus disappeared from history. Nevertheless, a belief persisted that one day the 10 lost tribes would be found. Yeah, a belief persisted that one day the 10 lost tribes will be found. Eldad Hadani, for instance, a 9th century Jewish traveler, reported locating the tribes beyond the rivers of Abyssinia, on the far side of an impassable river called Sambatsion. Zephaniah 3 verse 10 from the Septuagint reads, "From the boundaries of the rivers of Ethiopia, which is Cush, the Sudan, also the ancient Nubia, will I receive my dispersed ones." See? From the boundaries, now those same boundaries this Eldad Hadani is referring to when he reported locating the tribes beyond the rivers of Cush, the rivers of Sudan, ancient Nubia. Yeah? The book tells us that from those boundaries, from beyond those boundaries, will Yakongo receive his dispersed ones, his scattered ones, yeah, his scattered sons and daughters. And they shall offer sacrifices to me. Where? From beyond the borders of the river of Cush will I receive my dispersed ones, and they shall offer sacrifices to me in those territory. Where is that territory? Now when you go beyond the rivers of Cush, ancient Sudan, you come to a place called Kongo, where Tatanzambe will establish his kingdom. Difficult to believe, right? How can Congo be the place that the Tanzania have chosen? Is it not written, I will make the wisdom of men foolishness? His thoughts are not our thoughts. So whatever you can imagine and think, that Tanzania does it different. So the place that people despise the most, It's the place which the Tanzania says, that is my house. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my suppliants, suppliant means worshipper, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. That word for offering in the Hebrew, Yiddish, is minka. It's minka. It doesn't appear much, but minka is used to honor kings. Minka is an offering that is given to kings, to noblemen, people of stature, kings. When Saul was anointed king, people brought him gifts. They brought him a minka. They brought him gifts. So minka, the offering here, the minka is the gift that people give to kings. Yeah, the Kikongo word for minka is menga, and menga is also an offering, and also signifies an offering. And the Kikongo, the Bantu, are the only people in Africa that use the word menga for offering. Now, this Eldad Hadani was a philologist, and philology is the branch of knowledge that deals with the structure, historical development, and relationship of a language or languages. And so he was basically one who studies the developments of languages and the structure and the historical developments, etc., and the relationship between languages and people. So this man reporting locating the tribes beyond the rivers means that he recognized the tribes by their language. Yeah, he identified them by their language. Okay, now let's go to the book for a moment. In John 19:19-20 reads, and Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross, and the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city. And it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. Yiseka'yah Kongo, King of the Bantu. Yiseka'yah Kongo, King of the Bantu. And this was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. Now here we see a connection. Yeah, here we see a connection. So the people of the book, in their language, they must not only have Hebrew, but Greek and Latin. It must be there to identify the people. Once again. Now, you may doubt it, you may reject it, but the fact remains that Congo, the Bantu languages, are saturated with Hebrew, Greek, and Latin words. Okay? Kikongo, Chiluba, Lingala, Kikuyu, Swahili, Zulu. The Bantu languages are saturated with Hebrew, Greek, and Latin words. Now, let's revisit Abapoyat and the history of Luango, Kakango, and Goyo. Yes, this book was written in 1776 about the people of Luango, Kakongo, and Goyo, and they were all vassal kingdoms of the Kingdom of Kongo Diantotela. of Congo. Now here's a quote out of that book. The idiom of Kikongo nearly the same with that of Loango, Ngoyo, Samba, and other small circumjacent states, differed essentially from that of Congo. Several similar articles and a great number of common roots seem, however, to indicate that these languages had a common origin, but they know not which of the two is the mother tongue. The cleverest among the natives have not the smallest idea of the origin and progress of their language. They speak, say they, as they have heard their fathers speak. It has been thought that there might be perceived some marked connections between this language and some ancient tongues. Now, note here that they are calling this language ancient tongues, connection between this language, the Kikongo, the language of the Bantu, and some ancient tongues, especially the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So how are these ancient tongues found with the people of Loango, Kakango, Ngoyo, Samba in the kingdom of Congo? How are these ancient tongues found? And what is the connection between the Bantu languages and these ancient tongues that he calls Hebrew, Greek, and Latin? Another piece of that same book. There are to be remarked in the language of the Negroes many turns of phrases which are appertain to the Hebrew. We have observed that they expressed, like the latter, by substantives the qualities of the person or thing which are rendered by adjectives in other languages. Thus, in order to say hot water, they say water of fire. Mazia manpanzu. Mazia manpanzu. They say also a man of blood for a cruel man, a man of riches for a rich man, and so forth. They never express the affections of love or hatred, joy or affection by present tenses, but by preterities, like the Hebrews. They say, I have loved, I have hated, for I love and I hate. Now, this is interesting, right? Here again, he's putting the connections. He's showing us the connection with the ancient language, so-called ancient language, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, with the languages of the Bantu, like the Kikongo, Chiluba, Zulu, Tosa, Shona, etc. Yeah? Just as in Hebrew, we say a man of blood for a murderer or a cruel man. Yeah? Hot water is Mayamoto in Lingala. Mayamoto is water of fire. And it continues. Now, here we will see the Bantu languages and the Hebrew. Yeah, we will have some words which resemble and have exact the same meanings. Now, there are also found in the language many words pretty much resembling Hebrew words and which have the same signification. In Hebrew, Bana or Banak, hence is derived the word Ben, son, signifies he has built, because they considered The children as living stones, which compose the edifice of the family. Yeah, in Kikongo, mania signifies stones, and bana children. And tamer means a rule, a measure. And in Hebrew, tamam or tabmam, fullness and perfection. Insi in the language of the Negroes, the lower part, the foundation, and in Hebrew, insa, isa, which is written isab, signifies lower part or foundation. Kuma, to approach, to meet, in the Hebrew kum, to rise up and go and meet. Lika, to eat, in Hebrew lakam, which is written lakham, yeah, signifies the same thing. And likem or lechem, I have to pronounce it very good in Yiddish. Lechem means bread. So likem or lechem means bread. Now let's have a comparison here. Here you see the comparison words. In Yiddish Hebrew, they say bana or bana, ben, also ben. In Bantu, we say bana, which signifies sons, children. No? Sons, children. Tamam or tamer, which means measure, perfection, and rule. Kum in Hebrew, kuma, to approach, to meet, to rise up. And there you have lakam or lachem, which means in Bantu lika, or lia, signifying to eat. Yeah, to eat. Now, let's go to the Greek, the Bantu language, and the Greek connection. The connections of this language with the Greek appear equally marked. See? Equally marked. Besides several constructions of similar phrases, there are, as we have observed, several verbs which change their initials and take augments and double letters as with the Greeks. There are to be found also a great number of words which differ little, just little. How amazing! They just differ little from the Greek words and signify the same thing. Signifying the same thing. Now he gives us comparisons. Basita, which is pronounced bas, of bafita. Bafita, which is pronounced bafitu, means like the Bafilius of the Greeks, chief or man of dignity. Bambo, noise, sound of a voice, in Greek bambex, noise of the wind. Bima, a paste. Bialia, victuals, in Greek life, and what belongs to life. Odoko, to walk or follow, in Greek dioko, I pursue. Fula, to blow, in Greek folies, bellows. Kama, a mount and an obstacle, in Greek kamax, a flake or a prop. Mazia or mazia, the waters, the sources, in Greek mazos, the nurse teeth, etc. Now here we have the words next to each other. You see the Greek, you see the Bantu, and the definition, the meaning. Yeah, Aphilius, Bafitu, chief man of dignity. Bempex, Bempo, noise, sound of voice, sound of the wind. Folies, Fula, to approach, to meet, to rise up. Kamax in Greek, Kama, that is the mount, obstacle, stake. Yeah, Mazos, Mazia, Mazia, which means the waters, the sources, water sources. Now, we are not there yet, almost. Let's go to the Bantu language and the Greek connection. There are also to be found several words which seem to have come from the Latin, such as mesa, table, pasi, suffering, mongo, mountain, mene, morning, bene, much, much, largely, strongly, nzala, zeal, haste. Zealous is employed in the same sense by several Latin words. Ilia, I can't make out what's written there. Alright, that's the Greek. Let's put the words beside each other. And as you can see, the Bantu languages and the Greek connection. And these are just a small sample of words. Yeah, as we have seen, the writer tells us that there are numerous words, numerous, found in the Greek, Hebrew, and Latin in the Bantu languages. These are just a sample of them, just a sample. Now we see the Latin mesa, which signifies table in both languages. It's also pronounced the same, mesa. Even today, if you go in Italy and you say mesa, they will know that you are talking about the table. Mesa. Now, passi, 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 passi. From hence we have the word passion. Yeah, passion. Now, passi means pain, suffering. Mean pain or suffering. It can also mean your passion. Mongo, same spelling. Mongo, Kikongo word. Mongo, exact the same spelling, means mountain. Oh, I forgot the N there. You have Muten, I forgot the N. It means mountain. And Zelus, Zala, in Bantu language. Zelus, Latin. Zala means zeal, strive, hunger. Nzala, in Bantu language, Kongo and Lingala. Nzala, which means zeal, strife, hunger. And mazos, mazia, the water, the sources. And in Greek also, nurse teeth. Amazing, right? Amazing. So we do see Hebrew, Greek, and Latin words in the Bantu languages. Someone wrote the following: the Bantu languages on the whole are beautiful and harmonious. Yeah, that is from the myths and legends of the Bantu. Yeah, the writer made this statement. The Bantu languages on the whole are beautiful and harmonious. I agree. Now let's read another quote that goes hand in hand with this quotation. Here, it is out the book The Jews and Moors in Spain. Now, many of you may be familiar with this book, but let's read the quote here, talking about a black Spaniard Jew, a Moreno. We ask our black-eyed, bronze-complexed, and proud-featured horseman. Now, what is black-eyed and bronze-complexioned mean? It means that he's black. This guy is black. Yes? So they're talking about a black guy, a black Spaniard Jew, a Moreno. And proud-featured horseman, for the name of that significant city, Cordova, that lies stretched for miles along the right bank. We must know, and so we seek recourse as last resort. to our mother tongue, the language of the Hebrews. And his face brightens, and his tongue is loosened, and in accents as melodious. You see that? And in accent as melodious and pure as it must have been spoken by David himself. So he starts speaking and giving them the answer. Now, melodious is the same, it means the same as harmonious. Yes, it's the same. So both writers are telling us that those Bantu languages, because Hebrew, the original Hebrew is the Bantu languages, Kikongo. It's Kikongo, and the ancient Congo people, they spoke Kongo Lolo. That's how they named Kongo Lolo. And it's a melodious language according to these writers. It's melodious, harmonious language. And pure as it must have been spoken by David himself. Okay, so the black Spaniard Jews, they spoke their language. No, they spoke the language of their ancestors. Some of them spoke Greek, some of them also spoke Latin, but the majority, they spoke the Hebrew language. The Kikongo is the original Hebrew. The Kikongo is the ancient language that formed all the other languages. Read the book of Pastor Mello and the most intelligent language on the planet Earth. Read that book. It will explain you a lot. Alright. Now, let's return to the history of Luango and to Abbe Proyat. And he writes, these people, in order not to expose their religion to contempt, are very reserved in speaking of it to Europeans. And it is only by the long sojourn that the missionaries, you can also read mercenaries in that, have made among them, that they have discovered, at least in part, what constitute the object of their superstitions. Now, these people are really wicked. You see, they begin with these people in order to expose their religion, in order not to expose their religion to contempt. So they call it religion, but they finish with the object of their superstition. You see how they decrease and depower the Bantu tradition. Just call it for what it is. Their spirituality, not superstition. Their spirituality, their power, their culture. Unbelievable. But it shows us that when the missionaries came in those areas of Luango and Kakongo and Goyo, the areas of Congo Kingdom, that the ancestors were very reserved in exposing and talking about their religion, talking about their identity. They were very reserved. They wanted to keep it a secret almost. They didn't want to just spill the beans and, we are this and we are that. It took the missionaries a long time while they were living among them that they discovered some things. They began to notice some things. Okay? Now, one of the Bantu words for tribe is Mafila, which signifies hidden ones. Now, if you go to the book of Psalms 83, verse 3, You will read, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, Mavila. Yeah, against thy Mavila, the hidden ones. We are hidden. Our ancestors, they hid their identity because of persecution, yeah, because of the danger that came with their identity. So they hid their identity. And there was this tradition, this culture. Be silent. Don't talk about it with strangers. Keep it between the tribe. So when the European came, of course, in order not to expose their religion to contempt, they were reserved. They didn't talk openly, directly to strangers about their religion, about their culture, about who they were. In the Bantu, one of the Bantu words for tribes is Mavila, which signifies hidden ones, like it is written in Psalm 38. They consulted against thy hidden ones, Mavila. Now you have seen the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin connection with the Bantu languages. Abbe Poyat wrote about it. El Haddad, he discovered the 10 tribes beyond the rivers of Kush. He identified them by their language as a philologist. And he said, he reported, I have found the tribes of Yisolele, Israel. Now, Bantu, Muntu, we are the people. I am Nabi Kefas. Remember, Yisolele, we are living in times of restitution. Let us return to Tatanzambi Yamanzulu, to Yakongo, and remember the law of Massa and our ancestors. Ingeta, and I bless you.